Hello friends, and welcome to this week's Light Warrior session, Immune Boosting, with Dr. Cameron OConnell. Dr. OConnell is a naturopathic primary care doctor with interest in longevity, cardiology, fertility, and sexual health. She is a provider with Thrive Integrative Medicine in Anchorage, Alaska. Dr. OConnell has been a speaker at various plant-based events, such as the 2020 Climate Healers Health Conference, and is currently the scientific advisor for Switch for Good. In today's episode, we discuss natural ways to boost our immune systems. Sometimes we forget how empowered we are with our own body's functioning. I hope today's episode provides tips, reminders, and wake-up calls to take back control of your natural immunity. Today's episode is brought to you by Dance Driven. Dance Driven aims to provide Alaskans with more opportunities to perform, learn, grow, and connect. Learn more at dance-driven.com. Now let's dive into today's episode. Cameron OConnell. I have got a naturopath doctor in the house today. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh, you raised the roof too. I thought I was the only one who still did.
Oh no, girl. I was born in 1982. I know how this goes.
Oh, me too. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. All right. So you currently work at Thrive Integrative Medicine, correct?
I do, yes.
Awesome. So I wanted to have you on, I really created this series to help give our community some new tools, more tools for the bananas year of 2020, so that we can just start being empowered. I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like we all have been kind of thrust into uncertainty and feeling like we no longer have whatever illusion of control we thought we had. And so I just want everyone to feel armed with more tools. And I think a huge missing part of the conversation has been our immune systems and how to boost them. And there's so many things we can do that we have absolute control over to heal our bodies, even as far as reprogram our genetics. The list goes on and on, but that doesn't seem to be a big part of the conversation in the news right now. And I want it to be. So you were recommended highly, and I just can't wait to hear, what you have to say and what kind of work you do, and just what you think about all of this.
Awesome. Well, 2020 has been quite the year. Watching a lot of my patients go through ups and downs and meeting people along the way. The one drawback of COVID has been all the time and space that has suddenly occurred in people's lives, but I feel like it's a really awesome place to be able to make some changes and shuffle through all those closets that we shove our emotions into and our health into, and now we sometimes get to pull it out and take a good look at it. I do primary care in Anchorage, additionally licensed in California, so I see some people down there as well. But you're so right. There's so many ways that we can, and I almost feel like I want to Goldilocks our immune system. Like, I don't want it overly stimulated. I don't want it understimulated. I want to find that point for a lot of my patients that's just right. But there's things we can do every day, like laughter. Like you and I were just cracking up before this started, or the fact that I'm ancient and I was born in 1982, always a good point of laughter and reference.
But I'm young. I don't know.
It's okay. Medical school wore me down. But laughter is a great way to boost your immune system, quote unquote. There's definite impacts on just the cells that we make when we laugh. Additionally, it helps lower our blood pressure. And that's one thing that people, I don't think are talking about enough, is all these, pre-existing conditions that are out there. Mm-hmm. And anything I'm going to tell you today is just good for you in general. I want people to be able to just get their health on track as much as they are able to get their health on track. Additionally, I've been telling people up until, of course, today, where it looks like we live in, under a sponge. But up until now, getting outside, getting some sunlight on their skin. A couple small studies that show that it helps to move some of the immune cells, T cells, around our body at an even more rapid rate when we're exposed to blue light. So there's benefits to sunlight that don't even include vitamin D. And I know there's been like a bunch of talk and hype about vitamin D levels and COVID numbers. Yeah, there's some complaints about the research, and I get that. But in general, we live in Alaska. We don't get enough vitamin D, especially probably through the months of October to March. So for a lot of people, I'm telling them, hey, listen, vitamin D isn't going to hurt you. 2,000 IUs a day, probably a good idea. I'm not a giant pill person. They're talking about I'm a plant-based doc, so I'm a big fan of getting stuff from your food. But vitamin D is pretty hard to get if you're plant-based, and even if you're not, it's just good to take about 2,000 IUs a day. So there's a couple things there. I've got plenty more, but I don't want to pretend that you're my patient. I've got you trapped in my, in my room for the next 60 minutes where I can just inundate you with information.
That's what I want, though. Well, so I am a certified health coach, and so, I mean, I didn't go to medical school, but I went to 2 years of a really amazing holistic nutrition school, and I loved it. And so, I mean, I could talk about this all day. Like, I'm obsessed. Yeah. And so I think it's really interesting that you've chosen to be a plant-based doctor. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, yeah, we can come back to more tips because, yeah, I'm sure you've got a million. But what led you to naturopathy? Why did you choose this, and why did you choose plant-based?
I think naturopathic medicine kind of chose me. I had one lovable 4'11" crazy grandmother who was just like, eat your vegetables, get outside, hike up hills, take a million supplements, everything done completely out of love. But she was very interested in health, interested in reading all she could and keeping herself in fighting shape. She died in her sleep at 92. That is my plan with God. We've got a deal. But I get the same package. But she was a big influence. My parents were, my husband was actually looking into it, and I was initially going to be an optometrist. Okay. And last minute, I dove into optometry, into naturopathic medicine. Just seemed to fit a little bit better. So I'm really, really happy I did. As for the plant-based thing, never thought I would go there. Like, grew up on the Kenai Peninsula, participated in hunting, fishing, the whole 9 yards growing up. But I stumbled into something called True North Health Center. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's one of the only inpatient water fasting clinics in the US. And so I spent 1.5 years down there and supervised probably over about 1,000 people water fasting. And yeah, I know, weird and crazy. But additionally, when people came off the diet, we put them on a plant-based diet, and it was super stringent, no salt, no sugar, no oil. But it was really amazing. We would get people back in, and maybe they weren't quite that stringent, but if they stuck with the diet, a good number of them kept those long-term benefits that they got from water fasting for a long period of time. So I'm a results girl. Like, yeah, I don't care what it is or what you say it is. I just want to see it work. And I got to see both of those things work really well.
Okay. That's really interesting. The water fasting place for 1 year, supervising people. And yeah. I have read so much on fasting and just the amazing benefits of everything from like a 12-hour fast, which is easy, to 17 and to like 2 or 3 days, just the amazing amount of healing that your body can do during that time. It's like incredible.
Oh yeah. You know, I saw people who had recalcitrant hypertension that just would not budge with medication walk out with their systolic in the teens and their diastolic down in the 70s. And I'm not advocating this for at home. So just so that's clear. But I mean, I supervised somebody through a 40-day water fast, and I watched this woman walk in with 35 medications, walk out with 2. She came in on a walker, and she walked out without any kind of assistance, and she was paying for it. Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's a lot more research to be done. There's a lot more information to be processed. But yeah, it was pretty exciting to be involved with it for as long as I was.
Oh my gosh. That's, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I just get excited about. And
they want interns if anybody wants to go down.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll let you watch my kids and I'll go there for a week.
actually kind of, it sounds delightful. Sounds so weird. I don't have any children, but like, and I love it when kids come into the clinic because I'm missing my cousin's kids and having children with this whole hunkering down thing. So
yeah. Okay, well, you can meet mine. They're delightful as kids go. No, they're great. Cool. So the plant-based, and I find that really, so I'm not 100% plant-based, and it's something that I have like flirted with quite a few times over the years, but it stood out so much in school because every week there was like new lectures on different ways of eating. Right. And I find like nutrition is such a strange field because people have proven with their studies so many opposite things, it feels like it just can be confusing and overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And so every week of school, I was like, wow, paleo's the best. And the next week I'm like, wow, vegan's the best. The next week, wow, Atkins is the best too. No, that can't be right, you know?
Yeah.
But my whole thing was like, I have the perfect vessel to just experiment on. So I tried all the things, and I was paleo for quite a long time, and yeah, that was a good one. I felt amazing, and that started because I had my son and I couldn't breastfeed him because turns out he was allergic to everything under the sun. Right. So it was really dramatic and really extreme. And so right after that, I got pregnant with my daughter, and I really wanted to be able to nurse. And so I thought, well, if she has all the allergies he has, what can I do? So I just, every time I looked up like common allergens, I just kept getting rerouted to paleo websites because it took out all grains and all dairy.
Really good job on that one.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I was paleo for pretty strict for over a year and felt great. And then as soon as, you start adding in everything else, it faded. But anyway, I think just that the elimination part of dieting or changing your lifestyle can change things up really fast.
Paleo has a lot of pluses to it. I mean, you can do anything terribly, right? Like I've seen vegan patients who they're living off of processed food like there's no tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it across the board. People drop processed food and they get more vegetables into their diet. Fruit's a little bit controversial. I don't have a problem with it. I've seen it work really well for a lot of my patients. So, but if getting more fruits, vegetables, things like that, I feel like the closer something looks like, or rather I should say, the closer it looks like to what the original package it came in, the better off you're going to be. So if a potato looks like a potato, an apple looks like an apple. And I think even grains have their place now. But, if you grind them into a powder or a paste, you're asking for trouble. The body assimilates it in a different way. And it's been correlated, I know studies, but correlated with, in large studies with there being a pretty big problem. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I felt that. And, and now it's like almost trendy or easy anyway to find gluten-free. And, and I found out I had celiac. I found this out a couple years ago. Ooh. And was like, oh, maybe that's why I fall asleep every time I eat certain things or whatever. It's just like, okay. But I'm grateful that now there is so much vegan options, so many gluten-free options. And I think it partly became trendy for some people, which is why people love to like talk crap about it. But
sure.
Yeah.
Well, Anchorage is amazing with its food choices, or rather, I haven't been out in a long time, but it was. I had friends in Vermont who came up who were absolutely impressed and shocked with how many plant-based or healthy items there were out there. So,
cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, we're not doing too badly in the, the spectrum of eating out.
I mean, years ago I read that we eat the most ice cream per capita.
I remember that. Is that true?
I don't know. It's funny though.
We need an authority. Call Wild Scoops. Let's see what they have to say.
Oh, well, we know how popular they are, so
true.
Here's our answer. But back to school. So the thing that kept coming up all the time was, here's all these different diet ways to eat.
Right.
Yet, if you have heart disease or, this slew of all these different really serious physical issues, the solution was 100% of the time was, oh, we'll put you on a plant-based diet for 1 month, and then you probably won't even need this surgery and all these things.
Right.
Like, always came back to that. So I was like, well, obviously that there's something to be said there.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I worked for a very short period of time, a couple years, for Engine2. I don't know if you've heard of those guys.
No.
But it was run by Rip Esselstyn, and his dad was Caldwell Esselstyn. So he's the cardiologist that shows up and like forks over knives and rips in there and all those things. But that was something else that just, that was during my residency that I got this opportunity, which was great. But, just listening to his lecture of watching these plaques, actual images of these, vascular plaques, atherosclerosis reversing. And, did they completely go away? No, but regression is regression. And you don't see that. You see it a little bit with statin medication, but you can do that with broccoli as opposed to medication. I don't know, it just blew my mind.
Wait,
Yeah.
I have questions. What,
Yep.
you started to lose me. What is I can't even say vascular plaque, or what are we talking about?
So in your arteries, right? So when people have a heart attack.
Arteries.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
in your arteries. I like to think of them kind of as how would be the best way to put this, kind of a callus that kind of forms in those arteries. So over time, it's why we're obsessed as a profession with like your lipid or better known as like your cholesterol markers, right?
Okay.
If you have high numbers of LDL cholesterol and you've got some inflammation going on, you're going to lay down plaque in your arteries. Not really a huge problem until there gets to be about what they call like occlusions of 70% of that artery is blocked. Then some people experience chest pain. The big problem is, it's like, do you do any kind of kettlebells or weightlifting or anything like that?
I have lifted a kettlebell, yes.
Okay. I figured you
that I do.
Just want to make assumptions.
Let's not go that far, but yes.
But you know how, you get those calluses on your hands. You ever had it where you caught one and it's ripped and it bleeds at all?
No.
Okay. Well, if you can imagine, eventually, right, you've got all this blood rushing through there. People have high blood pressure. It's rushing through at an even more intense speed. That plaque has the ability, kind of like, maybe a blister would be a better way to put it, of rupturing.
Okay.
When that happens, you get part of your tissue exposed to that blood stream that isn't normally there, and you get a clot, which if you block off blood flow to anything, you're going to eventually stop getting any oxygen to that tissue, and you're going to stop getting any kind of waste taken away or any kind of nutrients deposited. So the tissue itself can die from that. With the heart, obviously, if it's got tissue in it that takes electrical impulses and then just keeps it a viable organ, then if enough of it dies, or if that electrical connectivity gets messed up and you have a heart attack, you can die from it.
This got scary. Okay.
Yes.
Everything got
That could be terrifying. All I'm saying is broccoli is really good for it. It keeps it all nice and open. And one of the other fun parts when it comes to working with guys is it helps keep other arteries open. And so other things in life work really well.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. There we go. Happier points.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I love hearing that, because I think a lot of us, we know, like, eat your vegetables, but again, there's so much confusing information. The keto diet became so popular. I lasted a few weeks on that, and then I'm just like there was a huge disconnect, because I think dairy is really bad for human bodies. And I'm like, no, I just can't eat what the cow made for the baby cow, because I'm a human girl. So
kind of a slight disconnect out there.
yeah, so that one was not quite, I couldn't do that. But anyway, so I just, coming back to like immune boosting tips, and I think it's, when it comes to the plant-based diet, which is ideal even in the short term for healing our bodies in a lot of ways, but that's really hard for someone to just dive into. And we're so attached to our sugar and meat and whatever. And I've had the interesting time of witnessing my stepdad. He was vegan for years, and it was very much to get off of certain medications and to just be him, and it worked really, really well. And then my partner, he is really strict vegan, and
Oh,
yeah, I'm surrounded by them. Now I'm talking to you. I'm like, okay,
coming
universe,
at you from all sides.
like I'll do it. Jeez, let me have one more burrito. Okay. Um,
I love it.
but and it's fun though, because my partner, his whole deal is like save the world, save the earth, and
Right.
you know the impact on the environment that the meat industry has, and don't eat dolphins, or you know, like all this like.
I know. I miss those dolphins. They were tasty.
I'm trying to think of the cutest thing ever.
I got it.
So anyway, totally different reasons behind why they're doing it, but
Absolutely.
I've gotten to witness that. So I mean, I've seen it and how sustainable it is. It really takes willpower initially, and getting into a lifestyle change that involves like more meal prep than I'm used to and things like that. But they both feel good, and they're both very athletic still.
Awesome. And that's, I mean, I work with all sorts of people, and I love working with people who, you know, stumbled into the Game Changers one day on Netflix and were like, crud, this is going to ruin my life, but I'm going to keep watching it anyway. And so then they come in and we get to chat about ways to kind of keep their caloric intake up. Because, you know, there's this big concept out there that you're not getting enough protein, and you've heard all about this. And basically, I guess my one tip with that is if you're getting enough calories and you're eating enough of a variety of foods, you're getting enough protein. If you are an extreme athlete, we can talk about other ways to augment that, but you'd probably be augmenting that anyway. So there's ways to get around it. But I am super lazy. I am like, I eat beans and greens, and I, you know, don't tell anybody. Occasionally I use a can of beans. Don't actually make it in my Instapot like a good plant-based doctor would, but it can be really easy, and it does help out with the immune system. I do research for a group called Switch for Good, which is through a woman called Dotsie Bausch, who was an Olympian and a cyclist, and really got tired of dairy being pushed at Olympians all the time, right? And so it's been really interesting to read all these dairy studies, some that are pro and some that are against. But there's some evidence to show that dairy can boost the amount of inflammatory markers in your body. And you don't want that. It's kind of like another one of my tips is, you know, get good sleep. Keep a nice flow. Go to bed around the same time if you can every night, and get up and get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Because when we're asleep at night, our immune system is kind of taking a few liberties with us. You get a little bit more inflammatory markers when you're asleep because your immune system is actually boosting up, making more T cells, doing things it needs to do to get ready for the next day. And if you don't get that proper amount of sleep and you don't get that melatonin, then you end up with chronic low-grade inflammation, which we know is not good for you and doesn't support good immune function and good immune health. So there we go. Tip number 3.
Sleep. Oh, I love sleep. I just love it.
Girl after my own heart.
Summer has been hard because my kids want to stay up later, and I'm not about it. But
good, yeah. Mama, I like it.
So sleep, okay, yeah, because I mean, what I want to help people with is like those. What are the baby steps or the initial like little things? And even with, you know, I am very inspired by my partner, and you know, all the good choosing to do for himself in the world, and so. For me, I've definitely scaled back. So I don't eat meat every day, you know, I used to, and, you know, things like that where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to use as much plastic or eat as much meat. And I'm doing like my little part, and maybe I'll do more, maybe not. But
on the plant-based end, I hate for my patients to focus on what they're giving up. So if there's somebody who doesn't eat a lot of vegetables, you know, I'm kind of in that whole, let's try and get to where at least a third of your plate has vegetables on it, or you have one serving, you know, and talk to people about serving size. Like, you know, I don't care what it is. It can be bell peppers, it can be carrots, it can be anything you want it to be. Just have a little section of your plate be vegetables, and try and make it for a lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever you want. and stick with that till it becomes a bit of a habit. And then spread out from there. There's great recipe sites out there. There's great ways to slowly incorporate these things. And I want people to be smart about it. I want them to get in enough calories, because just deciding you're going to become vegan and eat salad and veggie sushi all the time is a sure way to end up malnourished. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My first time trying vegan with my dad, I realized a weekend that I'd only been eating like corn chips and hummus every day. And I'm like, I don't think I'm doing this right.
I mean, it's great, but I don't think this is right.
Okay, vegetables? Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's easy, right? Like we were saying, any diet can turn terrible. Like there were moments there when COVID hit where I was like, bean burritos every single day? No one's going to see me for a while. Bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, ooh, vegan cookie dough? Let's do it. I'm helping the planet.
Nut-based cheese? There's no caloric density in that. Back it on.
Oh, don't say that.
So yeah, no, it's just the small stuff, finding one thing that you can do to change it, even if it's just eating a piece of fruit at lunch. There was a great book out there for a while that was like, what's it called? VB6, I think, by Mark Bittman. And he wanted the health benefits. He didn't think he could do it. So he just went before 6 o'clock, he was vegan. So for breakfast and lunch, he went vegan. And then dinner, he did what he wanted to do. Ooh. And you see benefits, right? It's hard to not follow those up with continuing change. Yeah.
And I love, you saying I'm a results girl. Like, I love that. And that's how I feel with all healing modalities. There's some that are really bizarre even. And I'm like, I'll try it, because if it works, let's do it.
I have patients come in and tell me some of the most interesting stories you're ever going to hear. And they kind of stare at me like, are you going to tell me this is wrong or bad? And, pretty much across the board, not most of the time, because I'm like, hey, listen, if it worked, it worked. And I'm not going to be the person to sit here and tell you that you're crazy or that you shouldn't do that. I haven't had that experience, so I'm not here to judge by any stretch.
Yeah. So do you only work with plant-based patients?
No. I mean, I've had patients I've seen now I've been up here for 3 years. So I grew up here, left state, did all my wild and crazy undergraduate time, and then, the rest of it down in the lower 48, and then back in 2017. So 3 years ago. But I have had a couple patients that I've been working with for years who are like, oh, doc, I know you're into this plant-based thing, but, just don't think I can give up cheese. Well, you got to do what you got to do. So as much as I can get people to, and I don't, trust me, I don't pass up any point of being like, your cholesterol's still high. Maybe you should go plant-based. But I think they know it's done out of love. And I would be remiss as a physician if I didn't tell people what the best medical advice was that was around. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you said you're also working with people in California still. So do you do virtual sessions?
I do virtual sessions. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing with COVID that's been really interesting to watch. And that's actually on the exercise end of it for people, especially now that it's getting dark. I've been talking to people about like, what do you want to do? There are Pilates places and yoga places in town that are doing in class or virtual class. You can do whatever you want. And you can do goat yoga from Georgia, if that's your deal. I know it won't have little goats on your back, but you can watch them running around. Like, there's so many options. So, it's really opened that side of it up, it's amazing. And I have a few more rights down there than I've got in this state. And so I'm able to do more compounding pharmacy work and things like that for patients that are down in California. So it's good to keep a hand in.
Interesting. Well, that doesn't seem fair for us Alaskans, but okay.
Call your representative.
Okay. Good. I know her. Her name's Sarah.
Good. I don't know. What's up with that?
Calling me.
Every guest cannot tell you to call me.
Oh, wow. Well, that's really, really cool. I would love to come see you. I haven't been to a doctor in over a decade other than the OBGYN. And but I've been thinking about it a lot lately. And I think maybe even because of COVID and being home so much
Right.
and slowing down so much. I mean, I still feel extremely busy, but I feel like I'm just noticing things in my body more than I was before. And I'm listening to my body. I'm like, hello, do you ever want to address any of these
I'm down here. I've been here the whole time.
Yeah, remember me, your knee, I still hurt. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, but there's just things, so I've actually been thinking a lot and trying to like, how does one find the right person to go to? So
Here I am. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, exactly.
No,
Yeah.
going a checkup once in a while is great. I mean, doctors, we suck. There's so many things about us that aren't great. So I get the people who are like, I haven't been to a doctor in 10 or 12 years. Occasionally getting that blood test, just seeing where you are right now is a good place to be.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. Well, and I'm actually a little more comfortable with a naturopath, and I won't go into a full-on tangent, but yeah, I definitely had my experiences with doctors that were challenging, and I'm trying to decide how much to say right now, but this interview isn't about me.
Your comfort level.
Thank you. Yeah, so I would love to see a naturopath. I like that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of good ones around here. I mean, everybody's got, well, I mean, we do a lot of somewhat similar stuff, but there's plenty of people. I've got a wonderful partner. I don't know if you've heard of Abby Lang, but she's been in practice up here for, geez Louise, 9 years now.
Okay.
And she does I joke she's the GI queen. Like if anybody has a inflammatory bowel disease or all the way to irritable bowel disease, she is somebody that's super helpful. So.
Well, that's really important. I mean, I hear so much about gut health and the connection that's being more and more understood between the gut and the brain, and
yeah,
it's amazing work. Yeah.
And that's another plant-based diet thing. So when I was in school, it was pretty much said, like, when you hit 2 years old, your microbiome's set there. And, probiotics don't change your microbiome. It's kind of a Band-Aid on it. So you got to keep taking them to keep getting the benefits of them. Plant-based diets, they're finding that they not only increase your good bacteria, but they also increase the diversity in your gut bacteria, which is pretty amazing. So, yeah, another good immune Goldilocksing thing to do. And, cutting down on that alcohol, because that cuts down on the health of your microbiome. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. Very cool. And do you mind, I don't want to keep you, I know you're,
no,
but I'm just so grateful for this. I mean, I wish that every naturopath is getting a stage right now to share things to help your body. I mean, I just know there's so much each of us can be doing, even little shifts that can make a big change,
So many things, it's kind of like everything I've talked about, like, on the laughter front of it, I joke around about the fact that, put on your favorite comedian maybe when you drive home from work, and you don't always have to listen to those really heavy hitting, you don't have to listen to NPR the whole time. Maybe take a little bit of time out, do something that makes you laugh. Sunlight end of it. Get outside. We've got very little time before it's going to get cold and icy, and get out there and get some movement. Your body, even if it's a 5-minute walk away from the house and back at the end of the day, getting in your vitamin D, if that's what you want to do, pick up some 2000 IUs and take one every single day. Or, like we talked about, adding in fruits and vegetables. And with the alcohol end of it, there's so many really cool, I was just talking to Zanita about this actually. There's so many cool non-alcoholic beverage mixes. Like I think it's Slipseed and these other ones that you can like make shrubs at home and a mocktail parties. So that's my new thing's going to be game night with my poor parents. And I'm going to be like, this is my new non-alcoholic beverage. How do you feel about it?
Oh, good. No, I mean, mocktails are fun. So I've been sober. September will be my 9 years. So
Woo!
I'm like, alcohol, what's that? I can't remember. Yeah, so I'm
surprised it's still popular after all these years.
It's still drinking that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a huge problem. but yeah, I mean, but the whole mocktail thing, and what's fun too now is there's a lot of like sober curious websites
Yeah,
and communities where it's people that's like, no, not everyone needs to be 100% sober. Like that's not, I don't believe that. I believe I do, but I like that some people are like, what will it feel like to just take a month off of drinking or have
perfect.
these fun mocktails instead, and
Yeah. Especially now, if you're worried about your, health and COVID is a concern, take a break. Like, I know a lot of people went in the opposite direction, and now it's time to kind of diversify your palate and diversify your experience. So,
yeah,
fun
absolutely.
stuff.
Awesome. And just one more thing with the inflammation. So you said more sleep helps.
Yep.
Um, do you have one other tip around that? I feel like lately I just keep hearing more and more about inflammation being a real root issue, or I don't know if root issue is correct, but just a big issue that shows up in a lot of ways, and the root of it is inflammation. And Dr. Sebi, who I assume you've heard of, like, to me, he's like the god of plant-based things.
Right.
And, and he was all about inflammation and mucus in the body. And
Right.
if you don't have those, you won't have disease, and curing HIV and cancer and all these things, and beating the Supreme Court, I mean, they're just like, there's some great stories about him.
Right.
So anyway, back to inflammation. Do you have any other tips on that?
Yeah, there's like, and we've talked about a lot of them. So, getting a little bit of physical exercise in there, being kind to your liver, cutting down on the drinking. Additionally, one of my favorite things is if you haven't embraced turmeric in your spice cabinet, you really should.
Oh.
So getting a little bit of that in every single day and making sure you're getting in those omegas. So one of my favorite sources is walnuts, because you can't go wrong with a walnut as far as I'm concerned, because I can make them into sauces and do all sorts of fun stuff. But, getting, if you want to make sure you're getting in enough, you can always supplement. And now in the plant-based world, they've got a lot of those like algal oils out there, algae-based omegas. And getting one of those in a day is going to help out on the inflammation front as well, especially if you feel like it's a little deficient in your diet.
Okay. I'm taking notes.
Call me later.
I'm glad you said turmeric, because that I honestly kept seeing that and I felt like it was like a trend, and for some reason I didn't like hop on. I don't know why.
I mean, like, it's like everything, right? Like, you've got these people out there who are like, it'll cure everything from baldness to gout to, like, stage, I'm joking, there is no stage 12, but stage 12 pancreatic cancer. I'm like, but I think it's with everything in life, right? Small little daily habits that we get going, small ways that we bring some of that stuff into our body. Yeah.
So I'm allergic to seafood, and which has been an omega issue for most of my life. So I've done like flaxseed oil, but now I have a really amazing tincture by a company called Now Alchemy, and so it's a lot of like the algae, and it's a combination of a bunch of it has like a marine kind of taste almost. I've definitely felt a difference with that. So
perfect.
That's exciting. Yeah. Walnut sauces.
I know. Weird, but true.
Recipes. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure that people know where to find you, and they can come knock on your practice door for more info.
Perfect. I'll peer out from my little corner.
Yeah, exactly. And you have your own website along with, I know there's like Thrive's website, but don't you have your own that's more on the plant-based?
I've got my own as well. I'm trying to be a better doc with getting more of this information out there, and everything from blogs to maybe, who knows, maybe eventually I'll do little snippets on Facebook for people. So I will get my act together. I promise, Anchorage, I will get it together.
Well, there's this. You'll have this.
I don't need anything else, actually. You've covered me for the whole year. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
I'm going to go open my can of beans.
Oh, no. Well, thank you again, Cameron. And I'm just excited to like see you in real life one of these days. How fun.
Yeah, me too. I get to meet your kids. You promise.
Yes. I will bring fun little children with me. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lacey.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please share that with me by leaving a review on iTunes so that I can keep the goodness coming. If you aren't already following me on social media, head over to my Instagram page at blazebellbliss for daily inspiration, or check out my website, blazebell.com. You mean the world to me, and I'm so excited to connect with you in the next episode.